Hi, my name is Susan Piver. I am delighted to be here with you for the Mindful Relationships Summit, and especially delighted to be able to introduce you to Danielle LaPorte. I'm a meditation instructor in the Shambhala Buddhist lineage and founder of the Open Heart Project online mindfulness community. And Danielle, who I'm actually just getting to meet for the very first time today, is someone I've wanted to meet for a long time because I admire her work. I admire her voice. I admire the way she stands up for women being honestly themselves. And I'm especially delighted because I'm reading her new book, White Hot Truth, which points to something that is so important, which is the self-aggression that often accompanies self-improvement. She has a fantastic website, daniellelaporte.com, and she just has a really needed and beautiful voice. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy it's you and me together.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, mindfulness, my relationship. Yeah. And then I was like, Susan Piver. I was like, I'm in. So yeah, so stoked. Thank you. The admiration is mutual. Yeah.
That makes me feel really good. And so it's a delight. Okay, we can end right here because this. Okay, so as you know, this is a Mindful Relationship Summit. And one of the things that you've written about in the past and continue to write about that I find so interesting is desire. And one of the things I was reading this morning, I'm looking down here because I wrote it down, you talked about the clarity of desire and how that's a beacon that we can follow. And sometimes it can be very confusing, like to follow desire. So would you mind saying a little bit about the role of desire in mindful relationships?
We could talk about this for a long time, especially in a Buddhist context, because, you know, y'all Buddhists think it's the root of suffering, right? And I happen to agree. But I think there's a refinement to desire where you can hold it more lightly. And I mean, my experience with desire in relationships, I mean, this is a question I get asked a lot from women who are in pursuit of or wanting to attract their person, or they're questioning. It's one extreme or the other. They want that person, or they're questioning whether they should give up the person they should have. And so what I've learned about desire in relationship is that, and this is nothing new. One, you can't bring therapy into the relationship. Like, you cannot be someone's therapist so that you're therapizing them to get them to a place where you desire them to be, which is just a really heady way of saying, don't try to change anybody when you're in it. And if you're not nourishing yourself, you're always going to be, if you're not nourishing yourself, you're just feeding the hungry ghost. Like, I'm going to get it from you. I'm going to get it from you. I'm going to get it. And you're not giving it to me. So then there's this, sometimes depending on the wound, there's this rage that flares up. And then that rage turns into resentment. So self-nourishment is a big thing. And there's a lot of discussion about courage in relationships, which is often in the context of intimacy. But for me, my experience has been the courage to let go, the courage to be okay if I don't get what I want, the courage to just be in that moment with someone when they're not giving you what you want, even if you deserve it, you know, even if it's a really healthy request. Of course you deserve respect and love and intimacy and eye contact. But if you're not getting it, the courage to just maybe be still or to leave in that moment. Doesn't mean you leave the relationship, but yeah, what happens if you don't get what you want, I think, is the really hot question in relationships.
That's really interesting because it points to this really difficult juncture of desire for what I want and then desiring someone else. And I think often as women, it can become very confusing which one of those should need. So yeah. I appreciate that distinction.
It's so messy. The whole desire thing is so messy. The heart is, the whole heart space is so complex and so easy to get tangled with and so raw and so woundable. There's just like, there's no straight line. There's no 7 steps. There's no right or wrong. We just have to keep talking through it. Yeah, feeling through it.
Agreed. And it can seem like, where does one find the courage to continually expose your heart and take that risk? Do you think desire can be a helpful?
Yeah, because I think, to put it in like a really crude way, how bad do you want it? And that's why I think that's where desire becomes this really incredible tool for creativity and for designing your life and for cleaning out your system. Like, to switch gears from relationships to business, when I used to do one-on-one strategy work with people, I would never say I was a coach, because I was like, listen, I'm not a coach. I'm not going to walk you through to what your milestones be. I'm just going to give you my opinion straight up, and you take it or you can leave it. And what someone would say to me at that end of the session was either they would choose the side of doubt that they could get what they want, and then they would go into like, I don't know how, or they would be going for it. And it's just like, I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. And for the doubtful person, I would say, well, how bad do you want it? And there'd always be this pause. And very rarely could someone in that moment, and we're wrapping things up, say, well, I guess I don't want it that bad. Or as Canadians would say, that badly. But if you can tap into the desire of like, the purity of that desire. This desire has been with me for a long time. This desire makes me feel expanded. This is the desire that I really know in my cells I deserve to have fulfilled. This is a desire that I'm willing to change for. I'm willing to risk for. I'm going to be vulnerable for. I'm going to get strategic with. I'm going to go get the help I need to fulfill this desire. Oh, when you root into that, then like it's this, it's octane, it's fuel. It doesn't confuse you. It clarifies you.
I totally get what you're saying. It's like a source of power instead of, shame.
Yes. The shame, this is so important to talk about in respect to desire, because the shame has so many faces with wanting what you want. I'm too big for my britches. You could just have Catholic shame, which I relate to. Like you need to earn that. You need to earn that. There can be the self-help shame, which is, in order to be of service, I can't have more than anybody else has. I need to be going without. I need to be constantly in that state of purification and rarefication. Can't have more. Abundance is actually really unsettling in that perspective. Then there's the anticipated shame. If I get what I want, things in my life are going to change. I'm going to be bigger. I might be less tolerable. I might out-earn my parents. I might be wiser. And like, let's really get split hairs here. I might be wiser than my friends. I might know a little bit more about how life and consciousness works than the people around me. And then what?
Yeah. This is very personal, what I'm about to say. I think we are both Enneagram 4s.
We are. Yeah, we are. I am, yeah.
So it just occurring to me as you're saying these things, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, we must be 4s. It's kind of like a 4. This is how to be a 4, like a healthy 4, because we run on desire and longing. And so for all you 4 sisters out there and brothers, especially for you. So in your book, you talk about the difference between detachment and non-attachment.
Yeah.
I would love it if you could explain what you mean.
Yeah. Detachment, I think, lives up here. It's in the head. And it's a little bit chilly. It's a little bit bitchy. It's more cerebral. And so detachment says, this is what I want, but I'm okay. I'm not attached if I don't get it. And what I think is really going on there is we're staying up here in our head and getting a little, terse about things because it's just this cover up for fear of not getting what we want. It's not going to turn out the way that I want. maybe even deeper underneath that is not feeling like you deserve what you're desiring. So yeah, it's a little cut and dry. Non-attachment. This took me a long time to figure out in terms of my Buddhist explorations. Non-attachment is you're gonna want it with all your heart. So the heart is engaged and it's warm, you're in that warm, friendly, luminous place, and the love is flowing. You're really open, you're really wanting it, you're believing you deserve it. And you're so in your heart and you're so full of love, you're okay if you don't get it. There's some courage there. If it doesn't work out, something better is going to show up. Or, I'm so here in this spacious, relaxed place of wanting what I want that I know life has got my back. And you've got so much room. There's room for mystery. Really everything's 50-50, right? You can pray, you can try and manifest, put on your vision board. It's still 50-50 whether you get it or not. I think all manifestation and money workshops should be called, manifesting the life of your dreams. It's 50-50. But no one would pay for that.
It's hilarious.
That's the truth. Yeah.
That is hilarious. And that is the truth.
Yeah.
So I love when you point to non-attachment as a kind of spaciousness, which in the Buddhist world is very consonant with what I've been taught and what I try to do and so forth. But I also love that you bring the heart into it, because I find when people talk about non-attachment, they mean, I don't give a shit, I don't care, or it doesn't mean anything to me, it doesn't matter. And so I just appreciate you pointing to it as kind of the opposite of really matter.
And when you're wanting from the heart with that permission, when it happens that you don't get what you want, you will actually allow yourself to be heartbroken, and you can grieve. And then it doesn't calcify, and it doesn't make you all sticky and cynical about wanting the next thing. And this is so relevant to relationships. It's like, my experience with relationships, my own, and just seeing, my friends around me, is, for those relationships that don't work out. And sometimes it's the relationship just not working out for a period of time, but you stay together. Or sometimes it completely disintegrates. It's not so much the heartbreak that you had to go your separate ways or you're not getting what you want. Because, I'm sure a lot of people listening to us right now, if you're here, you want to know about mindful relationships, you got a level of spiritual maturity that right? So, but it's the grieving of the dream. And when you can be in that space of less attachment, you can take a moment to say, wow, I'm really grieving that vision. I so had this vision. I so had this desire. Didn't work out. And it can move through you and on you go. Instead of getting cynical and hard about it.
And identifying yourself as a heartbroken person, as I think that's right, allowing it to move through, because the second you meet someone else, whether it's in a month or 10 years or whatever, that old grief is just gone. It's just...
So what happens, I remember reading some of your work about this, but can you just tell us what happens when you identify as a heartbroken person?
I think when you identify as a heartbroken person, or as any kind of person, you are putting on a mask and a shield, and you're turning away from the truth of what you feel, because it's too painful to feel, although it isn't. I think when you identify as a heartbroken person, you're sort of saying, I don't trust love anymore, and I don't trust myself when it comes to love, and it's an inevitability. And it's just, is it going to happen sooner or is it going to happen later? So that is a complete closing off of the heart. The alternative is to feel, which is uncomfortable but powerful.
So is heartbroken identification really just victimhood?
In a sense, yeah. But it's also heartbroken loss of faith in the heart, in your heart and in other people's hearts. I mean, anything can make you feel like a victim. Even getting everything you want can make you feel like a victim. But this is a particular kind of wound. But in my tradition, it is said, I feel like Yoda when I say that, it is said, that the sign of spiritual warriorship is a broken heart.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the great ones have a permanent broken heart, but they've stabilized in that broken open state.
Yeah.
But it's easy to try to do these things in order to get something. Excuse me. And in your book, you quoted John Wellwood, spiritual bypassing, which I think is really so interesting and important. And could you explain what spiritual bypassing is and how we confuse it in our relationships?
Yeah, and I even just love the phrase spiritual bypassing. I really wish I would have come up with that one. So spiritual bypassing is when we use all of the pretty, harmonious, lovely concepts and ideas of spirituality to cover up the dark, messy, very painful, ugly parts of being human. But without those, you're not fully whole. You're not tapping your power. You're not real. You're not getting the growth you want. So, it's saying, I choose harmony, when really you are seething with rage inside. And you know what you should do? You should seethe with rage. And you should look at it and examine it. You should even love your rage for a little while and unpack it and work it out. Because maybe it's justified. And maybe, and I'm for sure it's telling you 10 other things about who you are and how life works and the other people involved. And we use the practices to look good as well. So I meditate, so I must not be an asshole. I met a lot of people who are real jerks who actually are long-term meditators. Like, meditating doesn't guarantee anything in terms of love or compassion.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Is that bizarre?
It's bizarre. Yeah. But it's so liberating at the same time because, and this is part of my journey of waking up and becoming more compassionate on myself, was I was comparing myself to all of the, what I would call the hardcore meditators. And I was like, I'm never going to go to a Vipassana retreat and watch my in-breath, out-breath for 10 days. And I felt like a loser. I felt like
you are.
It's official. And I felt like a new age failure, that I must be avoiding something, that I wasn't courageous. But it's just not the way I'm wired. It's not my path this time. And, I left meditation for a long period of time in order to come back to it on my own terms. I didn't know that was going to happen. And now I'm a preacher for having a meditation practice.
Well, that is very wise. The most important thing along the path is to bring your own intelligence to it. Mm-hmm. That is the path. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And anyone who says, no, it's these 10 things in this kind of retreat, you should just slowly back away because that's not true. Mm-hmm. So that, I would say, very wise. Another question I wanted to ask you, because also some things that you're saying remind me of what is also called spiritual materialism.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do these practices and I'm going to become a goddess and drink green juices so I can get everything I want.
Yeah. Yes.
As opposed to become who I am or whatever.
That works all the time. Yeah.
I gotta go do those two things right now. How can you follow your desire in a way that avoids this kind of spiritual materialism? You know what I mean?
Gosh, that's a great question. Let me think about how I've done it for myself. Well, I think my own experience has been, I've been a spiritual materialist. Like, I had to be kind of douchey about things in order to realize that was not good for me or anybody else. And so I had spiritual pride. I had that of like, look how long I meditate. Or did I tell you about the time I met the Dalai Lama? Like those kind of things, because I wanted to be good. And underneath that, the motivation, it's just really this longing for approval and connection. And I think it can be a lot of father and mother issues. It's like, if I didn't get the love I wanted from my mom or dad, maybe God will give it to me, or the Dalai Lama, or my yoga teacher. And everybody just want to be special. So, I'm going to look at this more closely, but I wonder if it's like unavoidable that you become a little bit of a spiritual materialist along the way. And then you get your ego in check. You get back into your heart. You've had a few things that have humbled you. Yeah. So how did I get over that? I left things.
What do you mean?
I left meditation. I left those crutches. I left those symbols of spiritual glamour. So I couldn't say that I was a meditator. I thought I was going to be a slob for a while. And I had this push-pull relationship with yoga. And I was a vegetarian for 12 years. And then I was a carnivore for 12 years. And now I'm borderline vegan now. And I had to leave those things. I couldn't stand on those anymore to say how enlightened I was. I just had to just be me, and to just be really basically kind or not kind. I think I've always been kind. I've done some mindless things and hurt people, but I've never been intentionally unkind. And now that I'm back to all of those things with more intensity and more devotion, because it works for me, because it resonates for me, I long to sit. I long for intimacy. I want to have real conversations. There's certain things I can't even think about consuming anymore in terms of thoughts or movies or entertainment or men or food, whatever it is. But now that I'm there and it's so much a part of me, I'm quiet unless asked, And I also have so much, because I was so douchey about it, I have so little judgment about people who are in that place. I'm a little bit I get a little bit crone once when I'm just like, come around. I don't need to know about the angels you're channeling. You'll figure it out someday. You're actually not that special. The guy, that barista could be way more enlightened than you are. Yeah.
I love, again, how you're pointing to genuineness as the path. And maybe you tried on, and so did I, of course, all these things because you wanted to appear a certain way or whatever. But then to abandon them, to find out what really was you for now. Maybe you'll be almost vegan for 12 years, and maybe that will change. And the willingness to sort of evolve with yourself is,
And how you let comparison go in that process, where you're at and where someone's at, you realize that you don't know the machinations of someone's soul and their karma. And also, this is really relevant for how we compare our romantic relationships to other people's relationships and how they got it so good. And you grow up and you realize there's so much going on in relationships. You can't judge from what it looks like. And it also gives you the freedom to make the relationship up that works for you and to desire what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
This is I'm going off the reservation here a little bit, but I feel like there's love affairs, awesome, and there's relationships. And they may not be the same thing. We think all our love affairs should become relationships, and all our relationships should be love affairs. But the truth is, I think that's very rare. Do you have any sense, and I'm not expecting you to have the pat answer that you've thought of this a million times already, but how might desire help you know which one am I in? Is this a love affair? Or is this a relationship? Or is it both?
I don't know how desire helps you in that. It's so confusing. I think you have to have the maturity, the patience, hate the concept of patience, and the least patient person, to like go through things with people. So I mean, immediately I wanted to say, well, it's about time. Time will tell if that love affair can turn into the relationship, or if a relationship can turn into, you can turn up the heat and turn it into a love affair. But I don't want to subscribe to like that structure, like if you do this and you do Christmas and Hanukkah together, and then after a year goes by, then you really know. Because some of us can like expedite the process if we're like real intimacy warriors. Another word I like to stay away from is warrior. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, cool. I don't either.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So many questions I want to ask, but I guess I'll
Let's go over time. Just ask them.
Okay, good. I'm just looking over here because my notes are over here. So this question is about meditation, and I guess any practice as a life hack, which I think we do so many of these things as hacks.
Stop with the hacks. Yeah.
Quit your hacking. How do you stop? How would you approach meditation, or how do you approach it? And I think you probably already answered this. Not as a hack.
Oh, yeah. I want to say, if you're approaching meditation as a hack, great. It might be your backdoor entry into the cosmos. I'm never going to criticize someone for sitting down and clearing their mind, even if you need an app to do it. Please do it. I think it's beautiful. Okay. I tried that, and I got stressed out, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't the point of meditation. Meditation was on my to-do list, and I was dragging myself to it, to look good, to get points with the cosmic council. It was not giving me joy. And at the same time, I was writing about and getting on stage talking about following your core desired feelings and really using joy as, bliss is about something that pulls you, not a push. I was like, okay, I'm going to stop with meditation. Now for me, this is how I use meditation. A couple of reasons. One, I find it very comforting. That's it. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't sound grand, and it may not sound enlightened, but it gives me comfort. It warms me. I feel connected, and therefore I'm, just to put this in the most dramatic terms, I am able to carry on. Secondly, I use it to be of service. Now that's my third one, if I'm being so super honest. Secondly, I use it to manifest, to get what I want. And I want a lot of things.
I think you just gave us the formula for spiritual bypassing when it comes to meditation. And by the way, I want a lot of things too. And I have a lot of ambition and I just want a lot of things. I want to do a lot of things and make a lot of things. So I relate to that. And it can be very confusing, like, oh, I'm not doing as well as this person, or I'm failing, or I'm sick. I don't know. It can just get very, very, very unpleasant. But meditation does help clear, settle. But then the third piece is the piece that makes it that avoids spiritual bypassing. Because I feel like for a lot of meditation teachers or people that present meditation, they say it's something you do for yourself. And it is, big time. Something you do for yourself so that you can be of benefit. And without that last piece, and benefit to yourself, benefit to your children, your world, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But that last piece is what takes it over the finish line into spiritual world, as a cosmos world, instead of spiritual bypassing. And I think a lot of people say, oh yeah, well, you take care of yourself, and then you can add that piece later of being of benefit. Not a tack on.
And sometimes I think if you meditate enough in a particular way, I mean, you're going to deal with your own suffering. You're certainly going to deal with your own neuroses, but you're going to deal with your agony. And that just softens you up to feel everybody else's pain. And then you get to this beautiful place where you wouldn't have it any other way.
So the next question is sort of like, is there a practice that you recommend to everyone? But my guess is no, that just your own practice. But is there a practice that you...
Well, I think it's a really good, a great practice is to do a laundry list of all your self-help stuff. So like, what are all the things that you're doing to be well and liberated? Check them off. Which are feeling, just start with what feels too expensive. Because you'll pay a lot of money for things that really feel valuable to you. But if it's feeling like you're resentful about the money, there might be something there for you. What feels heavy? What are you dragging your ass to? What are you running to? What can you not wait to have happen? What have you actually seen change with because you started it? What's making you freer? And might want to consider retiring some of those things.
I really love that. It's a female way of approaching your path, which is powerful and real. And I just thank you so much for it. Mm-hmm. And if there is one thing that you would want to share with this mindful relationships community that you want them to take away with you, like if you could open their heads and put this one thing in there and then close it back up, what would that be?
One thing. You deserve it. Yeah. You deserve to have your desires met. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to earn it with how long you meditate or how deeply you meditate or how clean you eat, or you don't have to earn it by being good. You really can, you can have what you want and still be messy and figuring it out and doubtful. And, I had a great conversation a couple months ago with a friend of mine, with Guru Singh, he's just a real deal teacher. And I said, because doubt is my thing. Fear is not my thing. Doubt is my Achilles, which is just, it's a sister of fear, but whatever. And I said, what's a function of doubt? He said, faith. I was like, oh. And somewhere in there is desire. So, and when we're not getting what we want in relationships, we will often, the mindfulness community, self-helpers, will go into over-fixing ourselves. And I used to think, I would actually say to myself, I need to be more Buddhist about this. If I went to yoga this week, you know what? I'm going to ask that we work on heart opening stuff this week in yoga, because this must be me. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of it is me and some of it is the other person in a relationship. But don't question your desires. You don't have to figure out how you're going to get them met. Who's at fault? You deserve what you want. You deserve what you want. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I feel empowered. I feel empowerment rising when you say those words. I thank you. And I thank you very much for your book, White Hot Truth, and for being here and for meeting me, because I really wanted to meet you.
Oh, this is so delicious. Thanks. You're better than a good hot breakfast that I missed this morning. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much, Danielle. Really.
My pleasure. Thanks everybody for listening.